Once again, you've landed in just the right place for you, so you can become a wise wonder of the world. One of those 3% of the population who are true creator entrepreneurs. I'm Stan Houston, and this is the program just for you. We're here to help you with new ideas, ways to influence others, make a difference, impact, and good things will come to you. And we'd like to introduce you to a gentleman today who has a story that you might not believe. But you know what? It'll make a believer right out of you. And the program, it begins right now. Well, I'm glad, of course, that you have joined us, creator entrepreneurs, and that's the kind of people we're looking for. And you know what? The more you look for them, the more you find them, and they're usually in very different places and spaces. They're not in the Fortune 50 or Fortune 500. Some of those guys don't know how to create a thing except try to run a big company and make a little money. But the creator entrepreneurs are all around us. And in addition to that, the reason I suggest you not only look for creator entrepreneurs, you also do a little podcasting, a little radio work, because you meet the most interesting people in putting those two things together. And I have met a very interesting gentleman. Now, he's got more stories than he could even begin to tell in 15 to 20 minutes, and perhaps we'll have him back later. But, Randy, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. It is my privilege, my honor.
Well, you know what? Here's the way it goes. I don't ask you questions. I just say, this is Randy, and he's a very interesting man, and he has some stories to tell. So, Randy, pick out a story about your life, and just tell us about it, okay?
Well, you know, the most recent, really, story in life would be what I'm currently doing, and I am the supervisor for the Wild Horse Inmate Program for Arizona State Prison in Florence. And so that obviously comes to mind because I'm right in the middle of it, and I was asked in 2012 if I would actually start the program. So it started from ground up, and it's really been quite interesting and rewarding to just see that develop and grow. So I'll tell you a little bit just for reference about kind of how I got into it and how it's going now, and some of the results. So some of the results have been surprising. A lot of good stuff, and of course there are some disappointments along the way too. Anytime you're working with people, but by and large, it's just been such an amazing, rewarding program. I was raised on a ranch here in Arizona. My dad was a cowboy when I was born. An old ranch between Camp Verde and Payson, Camp Verde and Strawberry area back in there, Fossil Creek, and the old Randall's Ranch back then, and it's called the Verde Hot Springs Ranch. So early on, my first real exposure to life had horses and cattle and ranching in it. And then I went on to help grandparents on their ranch and farm in Safford, and ended up there working with them for 5 years, and we had thoroughbred racehorses. So that's kind of the horse foundational part. I became a police officer in the 70s and finished up my degree in theology, and so this job kind of is one of those things that pulls a lot of life stuff together, and you look back and you go, wow, you hadn't realized that this ingredient now is a part of it culminated in something that I didn't expect. So fast forwarding, then I started doing clinics for the Bureau of Land Management at adoption events on how to gentle and train wild horses. I had my first wild horse was in 1994, and it ended up very, very successful and very rewarding, and so from there I started obviously learning more, because one of the early things that I learned about training wild horses was that I had a lot more to learn. So then I started doing the clinics, and that was really almost a fluke. I had worked with the Bureau of Land Management, and I had trained a number of wild horses by that time, and I came to a adoption event, and the Bureau of Land Management supervisor said, we had somebody that was scheduled to come and just do a clinic for people on how to gentle them. That person couldn't make it. He said, would you fill in? So I said I'd love to, and so we had a little pen there and started working with a horse, and then finished up with that gentling demonstration. And then they asked, well, can you do another horse? And so I did a few horses that day. And at the end of that day, the Bureau of Land Management supervisor said, he said, I would love for you to do as many as you can at adoption events when we're having one. So I ended up doing probably 6 to 8 a year for the Bureau of Land Management at events, and at those I would do 12 to 15 horses. So, one of the things that I realized is I got to learn a lot, but I also got to make my mistakes in front of a crowd. So there are pros and cons to doing the demonstrations. About the time you think you've got it figured out, a horse will come in and show you that you don't. And that's still the case. I've been doing this for years, and the horses, I'll still see behaviors that I think, I've never seen a horse do that before. But the parallel to people is amazing, because it's the same with people. We never get life figured out and say, you know what, I can handle all people problems. And the more we work with horses and people, the more we realize that that's kind of one of the similarities in life is we don't have it all figured out, and we're always still learning, and we'll make mistakes, and we work with people who are making mistakes. So when the program started, what my initial priority was just getting all the infrastructure built and policies and procedures and the politics of it, kind of figuring all that out, because it's a federally funded program run by the state inside a prison. So you have these layers of policies and politics, and started working with inmates, getting inmates in to start to care for the few horses we had at that time. And we started training, and I had inmates come in that had zero knowledge of horses. And so it was teaching them. It was just an interesting thing, because we had horses that were learning about people who had never been exposed to people, and you're putting them in contact with people who were learning about horses that had never been exposed to them. And I think initially, just thinking through it, or if you put it on paper, try to think through that as a plan, you would think, well, there's a lot of reasons why that won't work. But what I found is there are more reasons that it will, because if the horse is willing and the horse is trying to figure the person out, the person is willing, trying to figure the horse out, you have this shared experience from the start, and the horse realizes he doesn't have all the answers and doesn't know what's going on, and you have the person that's not that much different. So the success, I think, really developed or came out of that dynamic. Early on, I would think, boy, I wish I could find a couple of inmates that had horse experience, and I did, and I regretted it because they would come in and think they had the answers, and so I don't rule them out. But when somebody comes in that has horse experience, I'm very upfront. So you're gonna have to learn the way we do this. But I find that the guys that just want to learn, and then they start bonding with the horses. One of the things in the prison environment, and I have inmates that are from trustee level up to constant supervision level. Matter of fact, 3/4 of my crew are probably in that constant supervision level because of their crime or circumstance. So we have a variety of inmates, and most of these guys, they've been in and out of prison. They could teach some of the anger management and drug classes and all of that, but working with horses, they learn so much just naturally. If they have anger issues, you lose your temper with a 1,000-pound horse, you're not going to win that battle. If they abuse an animal, they're fired immediately, and very upfront. Say, if you get mad and start beating on this horse, you're gone. So they have a reason to figure out other ways of handling their frustrations or anger. As far as drugs, most of the guys have drug-related crimes. They may not be in for drugs, but whether it's kidnapping, armed robbery, auto theft, whatever it is, usually it's drug-related. And working with the horses, they have to learn patience. They have to learn process. They have to learn delayed gratification. So many things that relate to recovery. They have to learn one day at a time. They have to also learn that they may work with a horse and get it to this level one day and come back the next day, and it's reverted back to old behavior. So if they start getting frustrated, I'll tell them, I said, hey, let me ask you a question. When have you succeeded and had a good day, and the next day went right back to stupid things that you shouldn't do? So they'll usually go, yeah, that's true. So you give the horse a little bit of understanding that it is natural to revert back to what it's comfortable with. So your job is to help the horse figure out how to change. So the surprising thing to me in the program has been the extent to which inmates' lives get changed. Early on, one of the early television documentaries that was done was by USA Today, and at that point, we had been going probably 3 years, and we were still at zero recidivism, which is almost unheard of in corrections. I think the statistics are going to vary by area and crime, but overall, within 3 years, you have like a 60-70% return to prison statistics. So to have it at zero at 3 years was pretty unheard of. And that's really when it wasn't one of those things where I looked back and said, wow, my plan is working. It was one of those things where you go, wow, why is this working? And started really looking for that. And that was what I finally realized is we're allowing guys to make some life connections. And I'm very intentional about that. We'll have a horse that will come in, for instance, and an inmate will work with it for 4 months and come from untouched, wild, and dangerous to riding through obstacles and water and down roads, and so I'll tell them. I said, if you took this horse that came in wild and came out of a wild herd, and you look at it now, it's vastly different. If you put it back with the wild herd for 3 or 4 months just to see how it's going to do, or let it take a break, what would happen? Well, it's going to revert back to wild behavior. I said, so, if you look at that, one of my little sayings, it's better to walk alone than run with the wrong herd. And so, to distance yourself from the wrong herd and connect with the right herd is part of recovery. And so there's these little sayings that they may get tired of hearing. I say that, but it's interesting. I'll have guys get out of prison who will contact me and say, I've found the right herd, and I'm distancing myself from the old herd. But they'll use some of that terminology. So I guess it does sink in. So the program itself has just been very rewarding for me. It's certainly had some success within the inmates and their families. I think one of the most telling things is when I talk to a former family member, a parent, a spouse that will say that I wasn't going to let him back home. I wasn't, there was no way that the marriage was ever going to get back together. And I saw how vastly different he was. And the more we talked and the more he talked about what he learned with horses, the more I realized that he had changed. So those, when I hear those statements, it's extremely, extremely encouraging.
Randy, I am sitting here, and I'm sure people who are listening are as wide-eyed as I am. I oftentimes like to say, in this program, you'll learn more here by accident than most places by design. And I have certainly learned a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell the guys, I said, I think God does more in spite of me than because of me. And same kind of analogy, though.
That's right. Well, this has been a fascinating story. Now, I'm going to tell you why we're going to have him back, because this is just one of the things he does. And it obviously has an incredible amount of implications. Now, what I'm going to tell people about, Randy, this was about 15 minutes. And I learned more in 15 minutes than I've learned in 15 hours sometimes. So take this podcast and you play it back about 2 or 3 times, and you would not believe what you may have learned about yourself, certainly about horses, and about other people. So this has been Leadership in 15 Minutes by hearing an old horse cowboy.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, Randy, if people want to know more, and I know this is true. In fact, I know 3 or 4 people right now that I'm going to send this podcast to, and I know they will want to talk to you and learn from you. So is there any way that they can legitimately and not harass you or they can be in contact with you and particularly find out about, and I'll just use the term, you were not just doing horses, you were ministering to men in significant ways.
Yes, and that has been one of the interesting things, because it's a state program, so I don't quote scripture, I don't pray with them, but that almost works to my advantage, because they watch your life and they start asking questions. Then, of course, I can respond. So, and we have a fatherless generation, so. I find that I'm sometimes in that father kind of role. So a couple of ways people can contact. One, the easiest anymore, well, social media, Helm Horsemanship on Facebook, just HELM Horsemanship on Facebook. The email address is helmhorsemanship@gmail.com. So those are probably the easiest ways to get in touch. The web page, I'm reattacking that. I don't like web pages that are out of date, and mine is. So, but that's
Right.
that's Helm Horsemanship as well, and I've got somebody helping me get that back where it needs to be. So those are the easiest way. It's just Helm Horsemanship at Gmail, Helm Horsemanship Facebook. So that would get them in touch. A couple of years ago, I wrote a book called Lessons from Horses, and a lot of that is some of the lessons that I not only share with the inmates, but some of the lessons that I learned as well about the connection with horses and people.
Randy, we're going to ask permission if we can be more in touch, because I know right now that I am going to get all kinds of requests. People are going to say is, have the horse guy back who does jail. Again, we want to learn more from him, and we'll, in fact, after we close down the program, we'll talk more about that. But again, Randy, this truly has been a wonderful experience, and remember, I tell you, people, take 20 minutes just to learn something new every day. And by the way, the clock is just about 20 minutes. Think how much you've learned in 20 minutes. Randy, thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you.
We'll be back in touch, and we'll do this again, okay?
Okay.
And we bring it down from one of my favorite films, the theme from The Last of the Mohicans. Great, great story. We have lots of stories here, as I oftentimes like to say with a smile. You'll learn more here by accident than most places by design, and you will certainly meet some of the most interesting people. And we did that today. And thank you, Randy, so much. And he'll be back. And in fact, we may even have a program that really features the whole idea of what life and business could be like if you do what the inmates did. And that is, they stopped doing the stuff they were doing. And they found new purpose, new causes, new adventures, and they took a few risks. And for many of them, it has made a life that seemingly wasn't going well, and it went better. And in many cases, it has gone very well for them. Always love to hear stories of rebirth, renewal, resurrection, and reconciliation. And we did that for you just today. Why don't you raise your hand and say, Stan, I'd like to be a part of the program. I'd like to know more about what you do. And we'd love to be in touch with you. Who knows? You could be right behind the microphone yourself. So reach out, stanhusted@gmail.com, stanhusted@gmail.com. And thank you so much, Randy. Thank you so very, very much. And best and blessings to you and the work that you do. All the best to all, and bye for now.